Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. I never thought my marriage would feel this quiet. It wasn't the kind of silence you enjoy after a long day. No, it was the type that pressed on your chest at night, kept you staring at the ceiling, waiting for a voice, a footstep, a breath. That never came. Eric and I had been married for 15 years. We had been through everything. 2 children, 3 job changes, a miscarriage, even caring for his ill mother during her final days. We weren't perfect, but we had always come back to each other. Until one night, without shouting or dramatic. "Storm out?" he calmly said. "I'm moving into the guest room for a while." "I think we need space." I laughed at first. I thought he was joking. We had an argument, yes, about something stupid, a missed dinner, his late night work calls, but we'd argued before. Space? In our own home? But he meant it. The next day, his suitcase was in the guest room. His cologne was gone from our bathroom. The side of the bed he once warmed grew cold and stayed that way. At first, I thought it would be temporary. Maybe a week. Maybe 2. I tried to make it comfortable for him. Left fresh towels in there, made sure he had extra pillows, even folded his laundry and placed it by his door. I told myself this was just another bump, but weeks passed, and the space between us only widened. He was polite, always. Friendly, even, but distant. No more forward kisses, no more checking if I wanted. Coffee in the morning. And slowly, I began to notice he never mentioned work anymore. He used to vent endlessly about his boss or the new intern. But now, nothing. He smiled too much for someone stressed at work. Laughed too easily at his phone screen. One night, curiosity got the better of me. It was 12:17 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I walked quietly down the hall to the kitchen for water. His door was slightly ajar. The soft glow of his phone lit the room. I peeked. He was lying on his side, phone in hand, typing, smiling. Not at me. Not because of me. I backed away before he saw. The next morning, I confronted him. Gently. I asked if something was wrong, if there was someone else. He looked startled, almost hurt. "No," he said. "I just need time to think." But his eyes didn't meet mine. The weeks turned into months. The children asked questions. Is Dad sleeping in the guest room forever? My youngest, Sophie, started crawling into my bed some nights. "I miss Dad snoring," she whispered. Once, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And then came the night that changed everything. It was a stormy Friday. The rain had begun just after sunset, pounding the windows like fists. The power flickered once, twice, then died. I lit candles and checked on the kids. Both were fast asleep, cocooned under their blankets. I started to head back to my room when I heard a door creak behind me. It was Eric. He stood in the hallway, barefoot, his face half lit by candlelight. His eyes were shadowed, but his voice was soft. "Do you mind if I sit with you a while, just to talk?" I nodded wordlessly and led him to the living room. We sat on opposite sides of the couch, like strangers forced to wait out a storm together. For a long time, we said nothing. The only sound was rain tapping on the roof. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't mean for this to become permanent," he said. I turned to him, heart pounding. "Then why did it?" He hesitated. "Because I was confused, and because I met someone." My breath caught. "I didn't sleep with her," he added quickly. "But I thought about it. I spent time with her. We texted. We met for lunch. A few times. I liked the way she made me feel. Like I was still exciting. Still desirable. And I hated that I needed that." The honesty in his voice made it hurt more, not less. "I never wanted to cheat," he continued. "But I already had in some way. And by the time I realized it, I didn't know how to come back to you. I didn't know if I deserved to." I stared at him for a long time, not sure whether to scream, cry, or simply walk away. Instead, I asked, "Do you still talk to her?" "No," he said. "I ended it 3 weeks ago. That's why I came out here tonight. I wanted to tell you the truth, even if it meant you'd never forgive me." I didn't respond. I just stood and walked upstairs, Dot. He didn't follow Dot in the days that followed. I barely spoke to him. I went about my routines like a ghost wearing my own skin. He cooked breakfast, took the kids to school, tried to talk. But I COULD in single quotes T Dot until one morning. I woke to find a letter on my nightstand. Dot, it wasn't long. Just 3 pages. He talked about how he missed the sound of my laugh, how he remembered the exact color of my dress the day we met, how he still wore the watch I gave him 10 years ago. He said he'd go to therapy, alone or together. He said he'd move out if that's what I wanted. He ended with this: "I broke something sacred. But if you ever find it in your heart to let me help put it back together, I will spend the rest of my life trying." I read it 5 times, Dot, and then I cried, Dot. It's been 6 months since that night we went to counseling. We talked, really talked. He still sleeps in the guest room sometimes when things feel heavy. But sometimes he comes back to our bed, quietly, and holds me without speaking. I haven't forgiven him completely. Maybe I never will. But I'm trying. And he is, too. And that night, the night he moved into the guest room and everything began to fall apart, was also the night something began to rebuild. Something fragile, something honest, Dot, and maybe someday something stronger than before. Eric's confession didn't break me, not in the way I expected. I didn't throw things. I didn't scream. What surprised me most was how still I felt, like the calm eye of a hurricane after months of emotional wind. There was a strange relief in hearing the truth. The pieces were now out in the open, cracked but no longer hidden under the rug. A routine, but peace is not forgiveness. And confession is not atonement. Dot, the days that followed were like walking through fog. He tried to help more around the house. He made the kids' lunches, cleaned the kitchen without being asked, folded laundry meticulously, things he rarely used to do. But I knew it wasn't penance. It was guilt, maybe even fear. He tiptoed around me like a guest in his own life. I wasn't ready to tell anyone, not even my sister, who noticed immediately something was off. "You look thinner," she said. "Are you two okay?" I smiled and nodded and changed the subject. I wasn't ready for the shame. Not yet. One night, about 2 weeks after his confession, I was putting Sophie to bed when she whispered, "Did Daddy do something bad?" I froze. "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "You don't look at him the same." That small sentence undid me. I kissed her forehead and left the room quickly, only to crumble onto the hallway floor. Kids notice everything, even what we try to hide. That night, I told Eric we needed to tell the kids something, not the full truth, but enough. We agreed to say we were going through a hard patch, but working on it together. The kids nodded solemnly. My son, Ethan, who's 13 and trying to act like a man, didn't say a word. But he stayed silent the way Eric had stayed silent for months. And I saw the same fear in his eyes, the fear of abandonment. Eric started seeing a therapist. I didn't go with him, not at first. I needed him to do that work alone, to look at himself, to ask himself why he drifted, why he ran, why he crossed a line and kept it secret. But eventually I agreed to go with him. It was awkward. We sat side by side on a couch too small for the space between us. The therapist asked us both what we wanted. "I want my wife back," he said. I said, "I don't know if I want us back, but I want the truth." That was the beginning of something new. One morning I found a folded sheet of paper on my nightstand again, then another the next week. He'd begun writing me letters, not long ones, just fragments, memories, moments, apologies. "Do you remember the night we danced in the kitchen? After Ethan's 3rd birthday party, you were barefoot. There was cake on your cheek. I remember thinking, this is the rest of my life. I forgot that somewhere. I hate that I did. Another read. I was lonely, but I didn't ask for connection where I should have. That's on me. You were there, I just stopped seeing you. I kept the letters, not because I forgave him yet, but because they helped me remember the man. I married, not the man who failed me, but the man who tried. Months later, our therapist suggested a weekend alone. Just the two of us. No kids, no pressure, just presence. We chose a cabin by the lake, the same one we stayed at before we were married. It was quiet there in a good way. We went on a hike, talked, made dinner together. He brought wine, I didn't drink any. That night we sat by the fireplace. He took my hand gently, not assuming, just hoping. Do you believe I'm still worth loving? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because love isn't a faucet you turn on or off, I finally said. I believe you're still trying, and that matters. We didn't make love that night, but we held each other for the first time in months. Not out of obligation, but because it felt safe again. Barely, but enough. When we got back, things weren't magically fixed. That's the lie in movies that one weekend, one kiss, one apology fixes it all. The reality is harder. It's waking up some mornings feeling okay, then having a breakdown because he got a text and turned his phone over. It's learning to not read into every action. It's finding ways to trust again, slowly, painfully, but steadily. He deleted the number of the woman he nearly fell into. He showed me, not to prove something, but to show he was cutting that thread permanently. Started writing again, journaling, poetry, even a few stories I had tucked away from before the kids were born. He read them, encouraged me. We started building a new rhythm, one that didn't feel like survival, but rediscovery. It's been over a year now. Eric moved back into our bedroom 6 months ago, but only after I told him I wanted him to. Not because I needed him, but because I chose him again. We still go to therapy. We still argue. But now we fight fair. We listen. And sometimes I still think about leaving. That's the honest truth. Infidelity, even emotional, doesn't just break a vow. It reshapes the entire architecture of love. But sometimes, in the small moments, when he brushes my hair back as I'm reading, or when he plays chess with Ethan on the porch, I feel something stronger than before. Not perfection, but partnership. And I've realized that forgiveness isn't a destination. It's a practice. What happened after he moved into the guest room didn't just shock me. It woke me up. And somehow, in the ashes of what we lost, we began to rebuild something we never had before. Something more real. Something we now fight to protect. Didn't return to normal. It reinvented itself. Eric and I fell into a rhythm again. Not the same one we had for 15 years, but something different, more delicate. A careful dance. He had wounded me, and in some moments, he still did. Not by cheating again, but by being a mirror to everything I had let slide in myself over the years. I had stopped dreaming. I had stopped looking at my own reflection as a woman and started seeing only a wife, a mother, a mediator. And that's when I began to drift, not deliberately, not vindictively. It was small at first. An old Facebook friend request from Michael Benson, my college boyfriend. The name alone triggered something. Nostalgia, innocence, a time before. I had stretch marks and bills and wounds too deep to name. Michael had been the one before Eric. We had broken up amicably when I moved away for grad school. He had proposed once on a beach trip, but I said no. I wasn't ready. I stared at his profile for a full hour before accepting. The next day, he messaged. Friendly, casual. Just, it's been forever. You look great. Hope life's treating you well. I didn't answer for 2 days. Then I did. And then I didn't stop. We messaged late at night when Eric was asleep beside me. Michael made me laugh in ways I hadn't in years. He remembered things about me I had forgotten. How I loved thunderstorms. How I once wrote short stories on napkins in cafes. He asked questions Eric hadn't asked me in years. What would you do with a week alone? What's something you regret not doing in your 20s? Do you still write? No flirtation, just intimacy. But that, I learned, could be more dangerous than seduction. We didn't meet. Not at first, but the conversations became deeper. I started dressing differently, paying more attention to my skin. I wore perfume again, not for Eric, not even for Michael. For me, but deep down, I knew the line was approaching, and one day it arrived. It was supposed to be innocent coffee. Just two old friends catching up. A public place. Daylight, nothing romantic. But the second I saw him, I felt 17 again. His face was older, but his smile hadn't changed. He hugged me too long. His hand lingered on my back. We talked for over an hour about our lives, his divorce, my marriage. He asked if I was happy. I hesitated. Then I lied. Mostly. He looked at me the way Eric hadn't in years, like I was seen. And for a split second, I wanted to run away from everything. From motherhood, from responsibility, from being the strong one all the time. When we left the cafe, he walked me to my car, and then he leaned in, not for a kiss. Just a touch. His hand brushed my face. Call me if you ever need someone to remind you who you were before the world made you forget. He said. I didn't call, but I thought about it every night. I told Eric 2 weeks later, not because I had to. Because I needed to. We sat at the same kitchen table where he had once broken my heart. Now it was my turn to wound. I saw someone. I said, we didn't do anything. But I thought about it. I wanted to. He went silent. His eyes didn't leave mine. You wanted to get back at me? He finally asked. No, I whispered. I wanted to feel something that wasn't pain. His jaw clenched. So that's what I made you into? A woman who needs someone else to feel alive again? You didn't make me anything, I said. I let myself disappear. And someone reminded me I still exist. He stood up, walked away. I didn't stop him. That night, he didn't sleep in our bed. He returned to the guest room, the same room where all of this began. The irony didn't escape me. Weeks passed. There was no yelling, no fighting, just distance. Then one evening, as I sat alone in the garden, Eric came out and sat beside me. I hate that we're here again. He said. I nodded. But I also realized, you deserve more than repair. You deserve rediscovery. Maybe we both do. We started something new. A promise not to rebuild the old, but to create something different. With boundaries, with independence, with honesty that hurt sometimes, but freed us. We started dating again. He stayed in the guest room by choice for a while, not out of punishment, but space. And we both learned something powerful. That infidelity, emotional or otherwise, doesn't always end a marriage. Sometimes it unmasks it. And when the masks come off, the real work begins. Summer arrived slowly that year. The trees bloomed late, as if the world itself was hesitating, unsure whether it was safe to begin again. That's how I felt too. I wasn't sure where we were anymore. Eric and I, we weren't broken, but we weren't whole. He had moved back into the bedroom after 2 months of distance, not out of routine. Not because we were fine, again, but because we had really talked night after night. We revisited every fracture, every wound, every unspoken truth. We held them like fragile bones and decided whether they were worth mending. Some nights, I still dreamt of Michael. Not because I wanted him, but because he reminded me of who I once was: wild, free, full of imagination. But I came to understand something painful and beautiful. He belonged to a version of me that no longer existed. And that was okay. I had changed. One rainy morning, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter to Michael. I never intended to mail it. I just needed to put the words somewhere. Dear Michael, you were the wake-up call I didn't know I needed. But I don't need rescuing, not from my marriage, not from myself. I needed to remember who I was, and you reminded me. For that, I thank you, but I'm not the girl you once knew. I'm a woman who has been broken and rebuilt, who still chooses. Love not because it's easy, but because it's real. Goodbye? I folded it, tucked it away in a drawer, and never looked at it again. Eric surprised me on our 16th anniversary. Nothing grand. No dinner reservations or expensive jewelry. Just a picnic in the backyard. Our kids helped him set it up. Fairy lights strung across the fence. A blanket, our wedding playlist, and sandwiches he made himself. He handed me a small box. Inside was a ring, not a diamond, not a replacement for the one I wore every day, but a thin silver band with an engraving inside. Still choosing you, I cried, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest we are not the same couple we once were. There are scars now. Invisible ones, yes, but they exist. Trust isn't something that magically returns. It is earned, moment by moment, breath by breath. But here's what I know now. Love isn't about the fairy tale. It's about what you do after the betrayal, after the silence. After the storm, it's about choosing each other even when it hurts. It's about saying, I'm still here, after all the reasons to walk away have piled up. It's about letting go of who you used to be and learning to love who you both become through the fire. The guest room is still there. Eric keeps it tidy now. A space of his own when he needs it. A place to breathe, to reflect, to step away without stepping out. It no longer symbolizes distance. It symbolizes honesty. Because now, when one of us needs space, we say it clearly, without silence, without shame. And sometimes healing doesn't look like forgetting. It looks like remembering and choosing anyway.